please call the roll.
Director O'Halloran.
Present.
Director Peterson.
Present.
Director Seamson.
Present.
Director Woodward.
Here.
And Chair Herndon.
Present.
We have 5 present.
Thank you. The Secretary, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we will have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes. Para las personas que desean escuchar esta junta escolar en español, por favor de llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de junta que es 932-3781-7338. Una vez más, para escuchar la junta escolar en español, por favor de llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el código que es 932-3781-7338. Gracias.
Thank you. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. Individuals who wish to speak on tonight's items were required to register in advance. I ask those who are waiting to speak to remain on the platform until you are called upon to speak. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. All speakers are asked to state their name and spell their last name before proceeding with their comments. Each speaker will have 2 minutes and 15 seconds to speak. After a speaker's time is up, they may continue to follow the meeting at one of the broadcast options mentioned previously. To ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind, including inappropriate language, will not be tolerated. The chair reserves the right to remove any engaging in such behavior from the platform. Those removed from the platform may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, he or she will not be allowed to rejoin the platform. Written testimony may be submitted to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Also, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting esb.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Madam Secretary, we are ready to begin with item 1, please.
Item 1 is action on Resolution 2021-R-20 by Directors Miller and Seamson on COVID-19 funding. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed with this item.
Thank you very much. Director Miller will not be with us this evening, but Director Seamson, as co-sponsor of this resolution, would you like to make comments at this time?
Absolutely. So just since this resolution was written, I would just like to note that the case number nationwide has gone up to almost 30 million cases of COVID-19. And in our own county, we're up to about 98,000. So just to put that in perspective, since this resolution was written in December, This resolution, Director Miller and I spoke about it, came about due to the threat of funding to districts that were teaching virtually at that time and any time during the school year. And we felt that any district who has had virtual learning during a deadly global pandemic should not be financially punished for being a responsible member of the greater community by putting the health and well-being of our students, families, staff first. We're learning new information daily about the long-lasting effects of those who have had this virus, not to mention the new dangers of the variants that are being reported. And I would just like to also ask those elected officials who are concerned and want our schools to open for the betterment of our children and their education. I would invite them to show that same concern when working on Governor Evers' biennial budget and support items such as investing in early childhood education, special education, and additional funding for English language learners. So that was sort of why this resolution came forward. So happy to answer questions or engage in conversation.
Thank you so much. Administration, do you wish to make any comments at the present time?
Good evening, Chair Herndon and members of the committee. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. We're in support of the resolution and happy to provide assistance and collaboration with the Office of our Board Governance as requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments at the time? Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments at the present time?
Madam Chair, we do have one individual on the platform registered to speak on this item and have received one piece of public testimony.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the platform at the present time.
Thank you. The speaker on the platform is Richard Diaz. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Richard Diaz, D-I-A-Z.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I accidentally put down the first resolution on the agenda, and I intended to speak for the second resolution. So I'll just give my testimony for the second resolution in regards to COVID education, culture, and normalization of relations with Cuba.
Okay, so can I ask that you please remain on the platform until that item is discussed?
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Madam Chair, that was the only speaker that we had registered to speak on item number 1.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item?
I move adoption.
I hear a motion to move adoption. Is there further discussion? If not, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve Resolution 2021-R-20 by Directors Miller and Simpson on COVID-19 funding. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Woodward. Aye. And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 2, action on Resolution 2021-R-23 by Directors Peterson, Woodward, and Baez. Peterson and Baez on COVID-19 education and Cuban relations. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed with this item. After the introduction of this resolution and prior to the committee's consideration, Director Woodward has informed the Office of Board Governance that at the request of her constituent, she would like to co-sponsor this resolution.
Thank you. Director Woodward, as co-sponsor of this resolution, do you wish to make any comments? Director Woodward,
Okay,
you're
I'm
on mute.
unmuting. Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Go
first of
ahead,
all,
please.
I would just like to say, having been a member of the coalition to normalize the relationship with Cuba since 1972, and has been a very active member in the organization, founded by Pastors for Peace, with Lucius Walker, also the founder of the Northcott Neighborhood House. They began supporting smallest countries like Cuba and taking goods there. And now during this pandemic, they have seemed to be doing better than many other places. So I believe strongly, and after President Obama opened the doors, that we didn't have to go all the way through Mexico to get to Cuba, and allowed us to be able to go there. And our President 45 overturned that ruling. So I think it's something that we need to look at for President Biden to reestablish the rule, that relationship that President Obama initiated with Cuba. And that is why. And I would like to add that there is surveys out, which I have completed mine, that people who would like to support that they can not only, they can sign directly to President Biden, as I have received it, and just add on that item to that if they're interested in supporting the relationship and President Biden returning back to the overturning President Trump's deterring of our relationship with Cuba. So.
Thank you. Director Peterson, would you like to make comments at the present time as co-sponsor?
Yes, thank you very much. Just so people know, there's 14 whereases and 1 resolve to this resolution. Director Woodward touched on a number of the important parts of it. I won't be repetitive, but nor will I read all the whereases, but I will sort of summarize a few things. It basically acknowledges the problems of COVID and its impact on health and education in this country. And as Director Woodward said, acknowledges that the United States government since 1960 has had a very aggressive policy against the people of Cuba. And that worse, Obama opened it up, but the number 45 put more restrictions. And that has an impact, a very negative impact on the 11.3 Afro-Latino people of Cuba. And Cuba is a small country, but it has an incredible medical system and educational system. There's people, Cuba has sent thousands of doctors and nurses around the world in the current COVID crisis to dozens of countries. Cuba has taken in people, including two young people from Milwaukee, to train them as doctors. There was one of the written testimonies was very powerful about that from those 2 young people. And the thing is, Cuba also has really an interesting approach and very positive approach to education, which I won't touch on, except to say that when I had the opportunity to visit Cuba, I was impressed with, they had a law that 20 kids was a maximum in any elementary school classroom. And finally, I'll just say that what we're asking for is the following, and I'll read this. And this is what we'd actually vote on. Resolve that the Milwaukee Board of School Directors call on the Biden administration and all other appropriate political, health, and educational authorities to promptly invite negotiations with their Cuban counterparts to explore mutually beneficial cooperation as a step toward normalization of relations between our countries. And with that, we would ask that the office of, if we pass this, they have the Office of Board Governance in an appropriate way contact the president, our congresswoman, and our two U.S. senators with a letter indicating that we've passed this resolution. Thank you.
So noted.
You're muted, Dr. Herndon.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Director Baez, your co-sponsor as well. So would you like to make comments at the present time?
Yes, surely. I bring in, I'm not going to repeat what folks have already said. Director Woodward, Director Peterson have raised the issues that relate to this normalization of relationships. I just wanted to add for the record what I think that as a board that is really progressive in its ways and in its thinking and the rejection of everything that is offensive, that is wrong, that we should not be doing as a country. I think that the record needs to show that this embargo that has covered Cuba since the 1960s, 60 years dealing with this, is really viewed as destructive and mean-spirited by the rest of Latin America, and viewed as a sort of like an expression of the imperialistic interests of the U.S. in the Caribbean and Latin America. And that, I think that in today's standards, the way we think today is wrong. It should not happen. And this board needs to speak up on that. I know that one of the letters we received, they question whether we should be involved in fair maps, whether we should be involved in the Cuba thing, and that we should just be dealing with the issues at hand. This is an issue that should concern us, okay? It is an issue of empathy. It's an issue of support for relationships that are good, that are going to lead to good thinking in terms of what we do in education, what we do in health. I think it's also a blatant lie to keep on suggesting that we need to have this embargo because some people in some parts of this country said that the human rights of people are being violated. The human rights of people have been violated all over this world. And in this country, the civil rights of people have been violated in this country repeatedly and in larger numbers than Cuba ever has. And it seems to me that is a hypocritical kind of thing to allow this country to engage in relationships with countries that blatantly violate the human rights and civil rights of people. And then we do this embargo that is a horrific way of creating a situation where we can later argue that, look, their political ways have failed because they have poverty, because they can buy medicine, because they cannot do this or they cannot do that, when in fact it is the embargo that has caused that because of the incredible control that this country has had in Latin America. So it seems to me that as a board, we need to be able to say, no, that is wrong, that is enough. We need to open doors to dialogue with people all over this country, and particularly a small island in the Caribbean that has done such remarkable things that even the UN has spoken positively about it, that the UN has repeatedly said this embargo and this closeness of relationships with Cuba are wrong. They are hurting people. It should not happen. They are preventing people of Cuban descent and other Latinos and other people in this country, African Americans, whites, etc., to travel openly to this country to explore what it is they're doing with literacy, with education, with all the things that involve health, which they have been salient, where they have been showing that they do such incredible work in spite of the embargo, that they are able to reach out to us and say, look, we will help you. We will train some of your people, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of this resolution, and I urge this board to please pass this.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
you do have 4 individuals on the platform registered to speak on this item.
thank you. Go ahead. Let's go ahead with the people on the platform, and then we'll return to the remainder of the committee.
Thank you. And you also have 7 pieces of written testimony that the board has received. We will go to the speakers at this point.
Thank you.
The first speaker on the platform is Richard Diaz. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hello, my name is Richard Diaz, D-I-A-Z.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience.
All right, thank you. I'd like to speak in favor of the resolution today. I strongly hope that this board will pass it. It is a shame that it is taken all the way till 2021 to change such systemic racist policies and issues. You know, that same 1960s government that placed the blockade on Cuba, you know, had very little respect for Black Americans, and the reflection of those policies and practices all the way back then trickled down to now. So we need to remove the blockade. We need to utilize the MPS school board and supporting the Biden administration to remove the blockade. I'd also like to mention that, you know, as Americans, we often think of, you know, the Caribbean islands and, you know, these small, beautiful tropical places as being beautiful as they are visually, but they are very oppressed nations. And they are oppressed because of the greed and profit mongering and wealth mongering by the wealthiest 1%, you know, as people that suffer and as people that have dealt with COVID-19, you know, we need to adopt policies and practices that put people first, that put health literacy first. And those are things that we can do at every level of government. I'd like to thank the Wisconsin Cuba Coalition for inviting me to speak, and
30 seconds.
Deeply encourage this board to adopt the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Arthur Heitzer. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record. Okay, it looks as if the speaker is trying to connect.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Name is Arthur Heitzer, Heitzer.
Thank you.
Live in Milwaukee. I want to thank the Madam Chair for allowing us to testify and the members of the committee for listening, and especially also board members Woodward, Peterson, and Baez for their support. So very briefly, and there's a written statement I have with full of citations to things that are in the resolution and the sources for that. Briefly, Cuba is a sovereign nation which has gone a different way in its economic, social systems, and its priorities than the United States has. After 6 years of punishing the Cuban people with powers that be in the United States, hoping they would revolt against the revolution, it is time to treat our neighbors as neighbors and to exchange and run for our mutual benefit. If you look at my written statement, you'll see that the attempt to impose hardship on the Cuban people has been done in our name, but generally without our knowledge. It includes trying to impose, quote, hunger, end quote, and lack of medicine on the Cuban people, and the world has repeatedly called in the stand. But it also hurts our own people, who are denied educational, cultural, and medical exchanges with Cuba. Since Cuba has prioritized universal, prevention-oriented healthcare and free education through the PhD level, We have much to learn in exchange for our mutual benefit. I myself have been there over a dozen times on sister church, sister city, labor investigation trips, etc. As you can see from one of the submissions, Cuba has offered free medical school to 2 current students who were born and raised in challenging economics in Milwaukee, including a 2010 graduate of Rufus King High School. They received this education and they're hoping to graduate this year as doctors in return for their promise to return home and work as doctors in underserved settings. After 60 years, it's time to treat our neighbors as neighbors for our mutual benefit. I hope you will pass this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Mark Foreman. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
I'm sorry. There, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Mark Foreman, F-O-R-E-M-A-N.
Thank you.
I'm a Purple Heart veteran of the Vietnam War and a retired MPS school teacher. I was an art specialist for 20 years from 1985 to 2005. I decided to be here tonight to speak in support of this very important resolution that's calling for an end to the 61 years of U.S. sanctions against the Cuban people. It was in the summer of 1990 that I was invited to spend a week in Cuba with 9 other U.S. veterans. The purpose of the trip was to initiate friendship between a group of retired Cuban veterans and ourselves. Our main subject was discussing the importance of peace between our nations and for the world. During our week stay in Cuba, we were given time to explore the city of Havana and go on day trips to other parts of the island. The thing that most impressed me about Cuban society was the number of excellent schools they provided for their young people. There seemed to be a school on every block in Havana. And their healthcare system was equally impressive, with a healthcare clinic on every block. I believe we have much to learn from the Cuban society. For that reason, I hope the Milwaukee Board of School Directors will support this resolution. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Christy Brehan. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Christy Bryan, B-R-E-I-H-A-N. I'm in favor of this resolution for a number of reasons, but I'm going to just talk about 2 of them, which I think directly relate to Milwaukee Public Schools. The first thing is Cuba has more doctors per capita than any other nation. But who are these doctors? Well, they are Cubans who grew up in small towns and on farms and in the neighborhoods of Havana. Cuba does such a good job of educating its children that it has no shortage of students who are successful enough to go on to medical school, which is free, of course, as other speakers have said, and they become world-class physicians. This is in addition to the thousands of foreign students, including Americans, who come to Cuba to go to the Latin American medical school, which trains doctors who then go back to their home countries to practice medicine in underserved areas. As a retired teacher, and I did teach for a while in MPS and at MATC, I think it would be very interesting for Milwaukee teachers to have an opportunity to share ideas with the Cuban teachers about how to help all children succeed. I know for one thing, in Cuba, they are very dedicated to the method of cooperative learning, and I can just imagine how exciting it would be to have a conference with teachers sharing ideas about that. The second reason is that Cuba has a flourishing arts community and is especially known for its vibrant music scene. It would be so exciting for Milwaukee children to have cultural exchanges with children from Cuba, where the whole country embraces its Afro-Latin culture. Right now, our opportunities to do these things are severely limited by the blockade. So
30
I
seconds.
vote to end the blockade by endorsing this resolution, and thank you for considering it.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Megan Wagner. Oh, I'm sorry. That is the last speaker we have for item number 2, Madam Chair. Your microphone is muted.
Administration, do you wish to make comments at the present time?
Yes, Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are in support of the resolution and happy to provide assistance and cooperate with the Office of Board Governance as requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any committee members that wish to make comments at the present time?
You do have Director Woodward in the queue and Director Peterson.
Okay, thank you, Director Woodward.
Yes, I move adoption of this resolution.
Thank you very much.
You do have
We have
Director
a motion.
Peterson.
Thank you. Director Peterson.
Thank you. I just wanted to, first of all, thank the people who testified, very eloquent and convincing. I also want to point out that in today's New York Times, there's an article about Cuba having a vaccine of its own quite soon. It's a vaccine that's not going to require refrigeration, and it's anticipated to be very helpful in the rest of the world and in Cuba. One thing that they only have one spectrometer in their country because of the blockade that is essential in helping with this. And they're very worried about having enough. They hope to make 100 million doses, but they are going to be having trouble getting glass vials to hold those doses. And that's because of the policies of this country. And it is time that those policies change. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. What is the, so if there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
On Director Woodward's motion to approve Resolution 2021-R-23 by Directors Peterson, Woodward, and Baez on COVID, education, and Cuban relations. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item number 3 is action on Resolution 2021-R-24 by Director O'Halloran on fair maps. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed with this item.
Director O'Halloran, as sponsor of this resolution, do you wish to make any comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair Herndon. And I'll try to make this brief, but it's kind of a bit. So when adjusted for inflation, we are now funding our schools below 2003 levels. And since then, the percentage of state funds allocated to schools has declined from over 43% to 32%. In the past 10 years, these cuts have amounted to over $3.9 billion. This stagnation is one reason why almost every district in this state has passed a referendum to fund buildings or operations or both. In 2017, Speaker Voss established a Blue Ribbon Commission on School Funding. The chairs for this commission were Representative Joel Kitchens and Senator Luther Olson. This was a bipartisan committee. And they made recommendations such as funding 60% for special education cost reimbursement, aid for mental health, English language learners, and in districts with high, low income students. And despite this bipartisan support at the committee level, we failed to receive the funding our students need due to the partisan gridlock. And so in June of 2019, public education advocates from across the state and I launched a walk to Madison from Palmyra Eagle to raise awareness of this crisis. In February, on February 17th of 2020, I went to testify before the Joint Finance Committee about the mental health needs of our students, and my testimony was ignored. And now many of those same legislators who heard my testimony are now calling on us to reopen school buildings in the name of student mental health. Last year, our state legislature was recognized as being the least active in the nation. They didn't meet for hundreds of days. And so our voices aren't heard through testimony. I walked 60 miles across the state and my voice still wasn't heard. And I attribute this to the extreme gerrymandering that we see. So when we're talking about, as Director Baez noted, somebody did encourage us basically to stay in our lane, right? Our lane should only be about reopening school buildings. And when we consider our ability to reopen school buildings safely, we must acknowledge that we have hundreds of millions of dollars of deferred maintenance in our buildings. And this I would directly connect to the funding gaps that we see through partisan gridlock that is the result of this gerrymandering. And so I am asking, or I'm calling on our legislature to redraw the districts in a fair manner, transparent manner with the input of the public. And I would call on ourselves as we consider, redrawing our own districts, that we do this with the public's input so that everybody's voices can be heard across this state. And so that is why I put this together. I will continue to march in the street. I'll continue to go to Madison, but this is just one way that I want to raise awareness of this very important issue for our residents.
Thank you very much. Administration, do you wish to make comments at the present time?
Yes, Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are happy to provide assistance and collaboration as requested and work with the Office of Board Governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any committee members that wish to make comments at the present time?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
you do have 7 individuals on the platform registered to speak on this item.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I'm
By all
sorry.
means.
I'm sorry. I keep jumping ahead. That is the next item. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, then, committee members, are there any that would like to speak on this?
You do have Director Simpson, Director Baez, Director Woodward, and then Peterson in the queue.
Okay, so we've got Simpson, Baez, Woodward, and the last one was
Peterson.
Okay. Director Simpson.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing this resolution forward. And I think when we look at politics in Wisconsin, there are a lot of people who are kind of trying to look for ways to take action to make things more equitable, to make sure that voices are heard in a way that people have to listen to them. So I just think that this resolution speaks to a lot of that. So I actually was going to just also move that we adopt this, but let's go ahead with some other speakers before we do that.
Thank you. Director Baez.
Yes, I'm not a member of this committee, but I just wanted to support Director O'Halloran's resolution because I think this is very significant. The issue of gerrymandering is at the very heart of how decisions are made in this state. If you have significant gerrymandering, as has happened in Wisconsin, and we have seen all the litigation that has gone all the way to the Supreme Court on this issue, they behave with impunity. The people, particularly people that are the beneficiaries of this gerrymandering, which is very frankly the GOP, has acted to continue their policies of drowning public education, anti-health issues, and things like that, because they know that at this moment they control the votes and they can get away with anything, with shooting somebody on Fifth Avenue, okay? We cannot continue to allow that. This is our time, this is our opportunity with this new census to continue to push to change that. There might be other litigation that will help in that. And I think that we have the obligation as a board to join in the forces that are trying to change that gerrymandering that has prevented us from being able to bring to our children and our families the funding they deserve to be able to do well education, well health, etc. So I urge the members of the board to pass this resolution and to be active in the next year or so when we engage the process of gerrymandering to make sure that we do the best possible to break the gerrymandering that is keeping us from having equity today.
Thank you. Director Woodward.
Okay.
You just muted yourself.
Unlike, huh? Unlike,
Go ahead, please.
Okay, unlike Director O'Halloran, I was not able to walk the 60 miles. However, I was in support of it and was able to provide a bus to go to Madison, to be there with people like myself that don't do that walking anymore. And I believe that this is a resolution that we should support and pass. So I just wanted to say that I am in support of the resolution.
Thank you. Director Peterson.
Yes, I too am in support of it. I thank Director O'Halloran. I think that, excuse me, just to comment that in the last 10 years, we've seen expansion of the voucher program. We've seen, cuts to public education. We've seen attempts to have takeovers of the Milwaukee Public Schools. And there's a whole slew of environmental and civil anti-voting rights attempts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That a key way to solve those problems of having such reactionary legislation is to have fair maps. I think we know that even though the majority of people voted in Wisconsin for Democratic elected officials, the legislature, I think a couple 100,000 more Democrats voted, but the Republicans got 66% of the assembly seats. And that's not fair, it's not democratic, and it has to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Peterson. At this time, I'd like to pass the gavel to Vice Chair Woodward.
So noted.
Yes, Director Herndon.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate this resolution and will definitely support it. Director O'Halloran brought memories back to me because I actually spoke at the 2017 Blue Ribbon Commission. And if I thought that there would be a change of heart, I thought it would have occurred that day. The meeting was held within the community, and lots of people turned out, and I empathize with Director O'Halloran in that we go to Madison, we testify, she walked. I too could not do the walk, but I met her in Madison. I drove, and we are definitely ignored. And I think that we're going to have to speak louder because our district has really been starved of resources. And I personally feel that it's a disgrace. And now that we're dealing with COVID, then they're going to say open the schools when they know full well that we've been starved of resources for several decades, and it makes it extremely difficult to do so. We have to consider our students, we have to consider our staff members, and it's time that our community, our city, and definitely our school district get some respect and assistance rather than somebody's foot on our neck at all times. At this time, I'll take the gavel back.
You got it.
Thank
So
you.
noted.
What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we do have a motion by Director Simpson to adopt Resolution 2021R-24 by Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, will the secretary please call the roll?
We do have Director Simpson and O'Halloran in the queue.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying that Director O'Halloran was raising her hand.
Oh, sorry about that. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. And I will make it super quick, and I appreciate everyone's support. And I just want to point out that when we're advocating for funding for our public schools, this is not a blue or red issue. This is something that impacts all 850,000 students who call Wisconsin Public Schools home. And when I'm talking about encouraging legislators to draw fair maps, this is not something that is just called for by Democrats. This is something that has been, as noted in the resolution, passed in 55 of 72 counties and dozens of municipalities, representing 80% of Wisconsin's population, and the referenda pass with a 3-to-1 margin on average. So this is not just something that, like, although I do think it's inherently unfair that, you know, we see this imbalance where our voters, the number of voters aren't seeing that same representation. This is not about that. This is about everyone across the state has called for fair maps. And so I just want to make sure that, although I do think it is an inherently political issue, what we're calling for is asking to stop playing politics with our kids. So I just wanted to go on the record with that. And now
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion? Will the
Madam Chair,
secretary-
you do have Director Peterson in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Director Peterson.
I was wondering if the board the board clerk could read the whereas part of the resolution for our listening audience.
The resolved portion?
Resolved, yeah,
Okay.
resolved, excuse me. I meant,
Great.
sorry.
The resolved portions of the resolution reads as follows. Resolved that the Milwaukee Board of School Directors join with community groups in demanding that voters be empowered to choose their representatives rather than representatives choosing their voters. And be it further resolved that the Milwaukee Board of School Directors call upon the state legislature to redraw the districts in 2021 in an open and transparent manner that allow the public to engage meaningfully in and to help shape the process. And be it further resolved that the Milwaukee Board of School Directors implore the state legislature to embrace democratic principles by welcoming the participation of its members who are independents as well as Democrats and Republicans, and by taking into serious consideration the demographic and geographic diversity of the state. And be it further resolved that the Milwaukee Board of School Directors direct the Office of Board Governance to send this resolution to the governor, to the People's Maps Commission, to the speakers of the State Assembly, and to the President of the State Senate.
Thank you very much. I've got some technical difficulties here. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Simpson's motion to approve the resolution is read into the record. The resolved portions, Resolution 2021R-24 by Director O'Halloran on fair maps. Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Peterson,
Aye.
Director Simpson,
Aye.
Director Woodward,
Aye.
and Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 4, action on the creation of administrative policy and procedure 3.14, contractor code of conduct. The recommendation is that the board adopt administrative policy and procedure 3.14 as presented in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. Does the Office of Accountability and Efficiency wish to make comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair Herndon. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. First, I just want to thank the authors who introduced a resolution to fill a policy gap that was made aware in our expectations of the vendors with whom we contract, and I want to thank them for that. Secondly, I want to thank all the members of the administration, the Office of Board Governance, and the City Attorney's Office who helped produce the language and the work that's in front of you tonight. And lastly, I just want to say this is a version 1. It is not a final destination. And certainly through the experience of implementation, community feedback, and also as we explore and continue to examine best practices, we'll look to enhance and improve this as we go forward. And I'd welcome the Office of Board Governance or the administration to offer their comments as well.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions at the present time?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if after the administration would present the Office of Board Governance, Jill Koala actually worked very closely with the Office of Accountability and Efficiency and may offer additional information relative to the progression of the policy as it moves forward. As Mr. Chasen stated, it is a fluid document in order to address an immediate concern, but we do recognize that there are other policies tied into this work around contractor code of conduct that may need to be addressed at a later date. But the
Thank you.
administration could offer additional information as well.
Administration, would you like to make comments at the present time?
Yes, Chair Herndon and members of the committee. We fully support both the proposed contractor code of conduct, policy and procedure, and would like to thank Mr. Chasen and his staff for the leadership in developing them, as well as the Office of Board Governance and the MPS facilities team, as well as procurement team for their contributions in developing this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, do you wish to make comments or ask questions at the present time?
Madam Chair, I don't see any hands as of yet, but we do have 7 individuals on the platform registered to speak on this item, and we do have written public testimony that the board has received.
Thank you. Well, let's
And
go
this
to
is
the
the correct item, item 4.
Okay, we'll go to the platform speakers first, okay?
Thank you. The first speaker that we have on the platform is Megan Wagner. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hi, my name is Megan Wagner, W-A-G-N-E-R.
Thank you.
I'm testifying on behalf of all the students I work with, and this testimony is in support of Action 4 on the creation of Administrative Policy and Procedure 3.14, Contractor Code of Conduct. I work as a student career advocate, and my position works to deconstruct barriers to entering the skilled trades and coordinate opportunities between schools, industries, and partners. My mission is to prepare students to be successful in their chosen profession and have the ability to advocate for both themselves and their families. Last week, I sent 4 students' resumes to a local contractor. Next week, they will be interviewing for a pre-apprenticeship position. This means they'll be given an opportunity to learn the foundational skills learned in an apprenticeship, and that those hours that they work will apply directly towards their carpentry apprenticeship post-graduation. I've worked with these students to craft and reform their resumes, and they are currently being prepped with practice interview questions and the option to set up a mock interview. Students are also prepared to ask questions of the contractor, most importantly being safety practices, which is something that all of our contractors should be prepared and expected to answer. These are the opportunities we should be providing for MPS students. I hope to be able to replicate this experience in other types of training to meet the needs of our students. Milwaukee Public Schools needs to show commitment in all areas to providing an environment that is free from discrimination, harassment, and bullying. We need to solidify an agreement on what we can expect from the contractors that we work with and our students work with. This will establish the principles and non-negotiables in our partnerships. So we need to decide what's most important. I hope it's a safe learning and training environment for our students. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Susie Falk. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Susie Falk, last name F-A-L-K.
Thank you.
I live at 650 East Bay Point Road in Milwaukee County, but my business is downtown Milwaukee. I support the adoption of Administrative Policy 3.14 Contractor Code of Conduct. Falk Group Communications, the business that I run, is a mission-aligned partner of Building to Learn and the MPS Office of Contract Compliance Services. I am proud of our collaborative efforts to offer work-based learning opportunities for MPS students. There are dozens of MAPS, mission-aligned partners such as my agency, in the region who are committed to fostering a healthy work environment that provides students and graduates with career exploration opportunities and internships at our companies and other training sites. As a mission-aligned partner, I strongly believe that the adoption of Administrative Policy 3.14 is necessary to increase accountability throughout the district to dismantle institutional and systemic racism. Earlier at the beginning of this meeting, you outlined rules regarding the meeting related to the conduct of those who offer testimony. I support those. Those rules are intended to serve in a manner that facilitates civil discourse. Along those lines, I strongly urge the MPS administration to implement rules related to conduct, those within this policy 3.14 Contractor Code of Conduct, to ensure a workplace that is equitable, inclusive, and anti-racist for our youth. MPS has a responsibility to ensure that businesses it contracts with are held accountable for any racially spurred actions or activities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Bevan Christie. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Bevan Christie, last name spelled C-H-R-I-S-T-I-E.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. I'm testifying tonight on behalf of the Contractors Code of Conduct. I've spent over 13 years working in youth workforce development. And in my early career, I was banging on doors and asking for organizations and companies to take my students and provide them with real work experience. In the last 5 or so years, I've seen a shift in companies begging for a diverse pipeline. And each industry thinks that they are the only ones that are suffering and not having a diverse pipeline. I feel like the tables have turned, and it is our opportunity to hold these businesses accountable that if they want a diverse pipeline, then they also need to be doing the work to retain and attract a diverse pipeline. And we simply are not there yet, which is why we have a pipeline issue. So I believe that strengthening that anti-racist language in this draft, and I agree with the statement made prior that it is MPS's responsibility to hold these organizations and companies accountable to be places where our students would want to work and stay to make a living and break the cycles of violence that we see in the city due to the poverty that our families and students are experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Victor Mateos. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hello, my name is Victor Mateos, M-A-T-E-O-S.
Thank you.
I am a student participating in the apprenticeship pre-owned course, and I am testifying in favor of programs similar to this. During this apprenticeship prep, I have been learning skills that I've been able to apply to the trades of construction and carpentry. Some of these skills involve learning how to measure workpieces precisely and accurately, being on time and ready to work, using machinery that I might not have been able to use because I didn't have the knowledge on it. We have also worked on a few projects, including the Bevan Skiff, which is a 12-foot rowboat, and have learned to create pieces of woodwork that we have been able to design and style to our own liking. One of the reasons why I am in this program is because I wanted real life experience. I wanted to work hands-on and learn from those people that have already been in the trade and have had a few years and have been successful in it. I'm also doing this program because I wanted to be with a group of people who share the same interest as me and that also enjoy learning new skills. Building to Learn has provided this safe environment where we can gather together and work on something efficiently while still being cautious of what's going on around us. I also think it's important to have more opportunities like Building to Learn, since young people can gain experience and real life knowledge. Programs like these provide a community for someone who might feel like there isn't an open door for them. And so it's really helpful knowing that there are programs that like this that will allow us to interact with others of the same liking and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Joseph Schmidt. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hi, good evening, Chair Herndon. My name is Joseph Schmidt, S-C-H-M-I-D-T.
Thank you.
I am here as a business owner of Automated Energy Solutions, a Wisconsin business doing HVAC controls, to speak in support of Administrative Policy and Procedure 3.14, Contractor Code of Conduct. Our company, Automated Energy Solutions, and we are a mission-aligned partner of MPS Contract Compliance Services, and I support the adoption of the Administrative Policy 3.14 for the Contractor Code of Conduct. As a mission-aligned partner, we strongly believe the policy and procedure are necessary to increase accountability throughout the district and to dismantle institutional and systemic racism. It's unfortunate that we continue to witness this, but this proposed policy will help make things much more explicitly clear and directly related to facilities and maintenance construction projects that unfortunately have had some of these experiences in the past. Performance-based contracting should extend beyond the standard scope of work and services that companies are to perform for Milwaukee Public Schools. We must invest in our future workforce, and the framework established by Milwaukee Public Schools and the Mission-Aligned Partnership represent a clear and concise pathway to true performance-based assessment as it relates to investing in our students. As Mission-Aligned partners, we are called to support and foster nurturing environments that students can anticipate when they arrive in our workplaces. We need your help demonstrating and propagating construction projects that demonstrate the necessary behavior and decorum that will improve this. We have recognized the varying beliefs towards diversity and inclusion, and oftentimes beliefs that are not transferred from the top down. And we look forward to you executing your authority to continue to make this better and a better and safer workplace for our students now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Regina Flores. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Regina Flores, F-L-O-R-E-S.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Herndon and members of the committee. I'm speaking in support of adopting Administrative Policy and Procedure 3.14, Contractor Code of Conduct. I'm appreciative of the board's action in directing the work to develop the policy and procedure because of the impact the absence of a code of conduct policy presented to myself, my team, and the students and constituents we serve. The absence of a policy exposed a serious gap within the district where so much of the work underway throughout the district is focused on creating an anti-racist and anti-bias culture. Yet the events that affected our team revealed our own suppressed experiences of systemic trauma because we were expected to tolerate and continue working with this contractor. Our team works diligently and passionately to serve our most vulnerable populations, so to experience blatant racism from an established contractor was and is reprehensible. The district must hold itself to a high level of accountability. This means reviewing contracting and bidding requirements and incorporating performance-based measures for all contracts, including reviews of hub, COIN, and student engagement performance. Lowest responsive bidding does not equate to the best offer, especially where racist cultures exist. It must mean we are willing to It just means we are willing to passively tolerate attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, and values that are not conducive to any environment when cost is a factor. Language within the drafts before you refer to discrimination, but fails to mention racism. To be clear, discrimination is not racism. I've been discriminated against and have experienced racism and sexual harassment, and none of these acts are the same. We need to be explicitly clear on anti-racism in this policy, and I urge you to consider the differences of these terms and put yourself in the shoes of someone that experiences all forms of racism. This is our opportunity to fight against systemic racism. Let us not wait for another incident to occur to realize what should
30
also
seconds.
have been included in the adoption of Administrative Policy 3.14, Contractor Code of Conduct. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Danny Goldberg. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hello, my name is Danny Goldberg. I'm the Executive Director of Building to Learn, last name Goldberg.
Thank you.
I support adopting the Contractor Code of Conduct, but I believe it must make a stronger anti-racist commitment. The district must hold itself to a higher level of accountability and integrity if we are ever going to dismantle white supremacism and achieve the blueprint for peace in our city. We need to be explicitly anti-racist in this policy. If we are explicitly anti-racist and we pursue it creatively, we will have more safe, paid opportunities for our students and families. We need to create and implement new work-based youth training programs, and we need to ensure safe and productive work environments and learning environments for all the students and adults affiliated with Milwaukee Public Schools. At Building to Learn, we align our mission and value statements with the Contractor's Code of Conduct to achieve better outcomes. We do not want to continue to confuse changes in conversations with validated performance outcomes, producing measurable evidence of better practices and better results. The condition we aim to change is named systemic racism. Systemic racism is a combination of politics, practices, and laws sustaining the oppression of people of color. The work of anti-racism means changing systems of politics, practices, and laws, including those in Milwaukee Public Schools. Anti-racism assumes people of color are not minorities. Anti-racism displays itself when diverse, inclusive groups of people work actively against racism and for equity, in contrast to people who passively claim to be non-racist or pride themselves on being non-discriminatory or writing policies that settle for non-discrimination. Equity and equality are not the same. We achieve equity when people get what they need and deserve.
30 seconds.
Diversity describes and recognizes different human bodies and identities, how many and where they come from. Inclusion focuses on culture and narratives, who is welcome and whose voices are heard. A strong contractor code of conduct will not relegate some of the workers and students to the back row in MPS, while others stay in the front row and enjoy the benefits of the paper.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that was the last speaker that we have on the platform, and we did receive 6 communications relative to this item, 6 pieces of written testimony.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Are there committee members that wish to speak on this item?
One second, I need to switch my view. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was my
Yes,
problem
we
too.
do have Director O'Halloran and Director Peterson in the queue. And Director
Okay.
Woodward, I'm sorry.
Okay, so got it.
O'Halloran, Peterson, and Woodward.
Got it. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. I just wanted to thank the Office of Accountability and Efficiency for bringing this issue, raising this issue to us so that we could take action on it, for having the courage to bring it up and voice the concerns. And I, once again, feel awful for what Ms. Flores had to go through, but I thank her for bringing this to us so that we could take action on it. And I want to thank the Office of Board Governance and the administration for working to move this forward, advance this so that, as you know, Mr. Chasen pointed out, perhaps this could be version 1 and we may grow on this into the future. But I think this is a start, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing for this, in addition to just everything else that's going on at all times. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Peterson.
Yes, I was just wondering if the Office of Accountability could talk a little about whether or not there was a discussion about making the statement stronger. There was a couple of people who testified passionately thinking it should be stronger. I'm not familiar with the entire history of the conversation, so I was wondering if there could just be some light shed upon some of that question.
Thank you. Director Woodward.
I would like to ask a question of Office of Accountability, if that's possible.
Yes, you may. If you speak your question, once this group of initial speakers are done, I will go to OAE to answer your questions. And I think you're the last speaker in this round. So
Okay.
that's fine. So it'll be your question and Director Peterson's that hopefully they can address.
Okay, Mr. Chason, I just would like to know many instances where there have been this type of work and our students participating at the end of the training and everything. Sometimes the jobs are not near where they can access the jobs, or out of not locally, like downtown. I heard her say that the first speaker said that the job was downtown. I can understand they can access the jobs, but will all the jobs be in the district where they can get transportation to the jobs? Because many times they don't drive, and at the end of it, they don't have a job because they can't get to it. And sometimes they're they're being transported by vans and stuff to get to the jobs after they have finished their training. So can you speak to that to me?
Thank you very much, Director Woodward. At this time, I hope OAE Matt Chasen has some answers or would like to respond. So at this time, Matt.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability Efficiency. I'll start with Director Peterson's question and then move on to Director Woodward's. So there was an attempt in the development of this policy to align it to existing language, mostly in existing policy. As we noted before, this was simply a baseline. And as we improve this and other policies to strengthen it into a more affirmative stance against racism, racist practices, we can certainly bring all those things into alignment at that time. There was discussion, and in order to move it to this point with its most alignment to as many policies as we have in the language that exists, that was some of the basis for the language you see in front of you now. And then to Director Woodward's question, this is a challenge that our team has identified. There are some programs and some initiatives that we are working on to help to address that with students based on their location and based on the mapping of their opportunities and where they're located. I'd be happy to provide some more information to you on that before the full board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Could
You
I
have
get a
Director
motion,
Simpson
please,
in the
from
queue.
someone?
You have
Thank
Director
you.
Simpson.
Director Simpson.
Yeah, I mean, first, I'd just like to thank the speakers for speaking up for our students and also for encouraging us to make this even a little bit stronger and include that specific language of being anti-racist and embed that within the policy. But I would like to, recommend that we move adoption of this as it is now. It says draft, so there's room for change, but I would just like to move adoption of it.
Thank you. Is there further discussion from committee? Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Simpson's motion to approve the creation of Administrative Policy and Procedure 3.14 Contractor Code of Conduct as outlined in the attachments to this item. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Are there any more items, Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. There being no further business before this committee tonight, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.